I like that music. This is my new theme song, right? This is my theme song.
It's your theme groove for now.
I like that it develops like the rest of the show. It sounds good, like it's news. It's newsy. Got
a little urgency about it?
Yeah. It's like a clock, heartbeat clock, time. Cool.
Yeah, most of those big news things, they either try to sound ponderous or sort of threatening, a little frantic. Mm-hmm. Like, we got it covered. We're going to tell you what's going on. You're the poor, stupid little consumer of news and information.
Uh-huh.
Key up a little. Get jacked up with us.
It's pretty cool.
Best part, no licensing or anything.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah.
Being held hostage by ASCAP just to hear music. It's ridiculous. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the show tonight. We're excited because we're dreaming up theme music. Well, Johnny is. And Ray, you are too.
Except it's Ron.
Ron, how come I keep calling you Ray?
We'd like to
I'm so
introduce the
sorry.
band now, ladies and gentlemen. Roseanne, Ron.
Ron, hi Ron. I'm bad on names. I asked the guest.
I don't think anybody would know.
I asked our guest Bob Harris. I thought his name was something else. What did I call you?
Ron.
Ron.
That Ron is. We're getting that.
I'll tell you, the name thing is the first part of your memory to go, for sure. Well, I'm glad everybody's here because we have a good subject tonight. We're going to talk about how the Democrats have already betrayed the entire election and the hopes and dreams of ordinary Americans. Already. I didn't think they could do it so fast, but boy, they already have. And I don't know if we have any way of pulling them back and reminding them why they did get, a win. And hopefully we could do some influence in there. But if not, we'll just bitch about it. I really want to talk about, is this the right time to start thinking about a real third party or a new party or something? Having to pick the lesser of two evils all the time? What if it was not the lesser of two evils? What if it was not between Hitler or Mussolini? What if it was like we didn't vote for the lesser evil, we actually voted for the person that we liked? What would that be like, Pops?
Well, it would be the lesser of three evils. Speaking mathematically, that would be a mild improvement at least.
What if you actually could vote for something you believed in?
If you had a third
instead
party.
Of against?
Wasn't Ross Perot or somebody trying? I know I've always liked the Libertarians. They're pretty cool, but they always get 111 votes.
Yeah. I think it might be the time in the history of this country where it would have a chance for a third reality, which I think is really cool when there's a third thing. That's really, that's very futuristic.
I agree with Noam Chomsky in that I think that consensus is shaped. And I think that people are conditioned day after day, and they have been in this country from cradle to grave, that we have two parties.
Uh-huh.
As Gore Vidal says, there's really only one party, the money party, and they have two branches, the Republicans and the Democrats. When the people get pissed off enough, they'll throw them to the wolves and give people, but in a sense, and that's what I'd like to hear, what Bob thinks about a premise or a thought of mine, which is that I think that either party or any party, even a third party, faces the unenviable task of trying to tell the American people that, you know what, it's kind of over.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It's over. There's a race to the bottom for labor, and no longer should you make 3 times as much money as people all over the world because you're an American plumber or even a unionized plumber, and as you know, I'm pro-union.
Well, they kind of did, that's what I think the Democrats are going to inherit. They're going to have to take the blame for all of it. This whole landslide thing is just to set it up so the Democrats get the blame.
We've lost between 2 and 3 million manufacturing jobs under Bush, and they're probably not going to come back.
No, they're not going to come back.
There's really not a
I
reason.
like when Bush was it Miami, where he said the new jobs are like everybody can work in the kitchen of a cruise ship. He was serious too, and it's real. Those are the jobs, are service jobs. right? They're not manufacturing
Well, Bush's
jobs.
dad said that he didn't represent so much the working classes, that's nice, but he's more the investing classes. And people of that ilk, the Republicans, et cetera, they say things, tend to say things like Phil Graham says, which is, hey, I never got a job from a poor man. What's wrong with being pro-business? And that's the business of America's business, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. But there's a big worldwide economic correction coming, and
It's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna look good here in this country too long. But anyway, should we take a break and then bring our guest Bob Harris out, or should we just bring him out? Okay, let's take a break and we'll come back with our guest Bob Harris. We're gonna run him down and make him tell us like his credits besides winning on Jeopardy, which I wanna know about that too. But I wanna
wonder if
hear,
I
he
already-
wants to talk about the lame Dems. And so we're ready to go into that subject. Okay, we'll take a break and come back and do it. Okay, hey, we're here, me and John Argent. We're here with Bob Harris that wrote A Decade in Jeopardy and what is this? Prisoner of Trebekistan. Hi, Bob, thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Roseanne.
Why this title?
It was actually something I mumbled as I was coming off stage, having lost for, I believe, the 4th time in the last number of, like, 10 years they've had me on the show now and again. There was a big tournament at Radio City Music Hall a few years ago with $1 million prize, and I got to play a couple of games in that tournament, and I lost again, as I seem to do fairly often. And walking off stage, I grumbled to a friend of mine. He said, "Do you think you'll ever be back on the show?" I said, "I have no idea. I'm just a prisoner of Trebekistan." And it just kind of stuck. And then when it came time to write a book, it seemed like a good title.
Why? What the hell's Trebekistan?
Alex Trebek, baby.
Oh!
Ding dong.
I thought it was a country.
Oh, well, maybe someday it will be.
How dumb was that?
They'll have a lot of books.
What do you think of that Ken Jennings?
He's an amazing guy, I have to say, honestly. A lot of people want to have reasons to dislike him. Nobody wants to think that there's a guy out there who's, that smart and that together, and he's a good family guy. He's got a happy marriage. There was a thing where he made a couple of jokes about Jeopardy over the summer, and there was a big national news story about how he was like ingrateful and all this. He was kidding around, but people want to. We love it to see heroes fail, and but he's actually a terrific guy. He's a really nice fella. He's every bit as bright as you'd think, and he's won like $3 million on the show, and he's still a really nice guy. So my hat's off to him.
Like people that go on Jeopardy, that's a special type of brain that takes.
Yeah, I don't know if I have it, but I believe that's probably true.
Well, you must. I mean, they put you through more testing than I think it takes to get into the CIA, don't they? I mean, don't you have to pass all these tests?
Don't you think that maybe Jeopardy is one sign, one ray of hope that America isn't completely sinking into whatever you want to call it, dumbed downsville?
It's
the fact that people will watch
it's
a
like
show
the
and
only intelligent game.
I'll take Eastern European capitals for 400,
Yeah, they have
Alex.
to have some
That some Americans,
references,
that a
right.
few Americans.
That have historical references.
There's remarkably little screaming at briefcases in that show. It is the only show I think left on television that does nothing but reward not just like knowledge, but a playful application of knowledge. Creatively
cool.
looking at the hints and stuff like that. And I actually think that's why it survived so long.
Who are the sponsors? That tells a little bit about maybe who's watching. Is it like?
It skews a little old. At the end of the show, some contestants also receive ointments and unguents and liniments and
Old
braces
people.
and straps.
So it's
and,
probably dying off then pretty soon.
They're
Young
continually.
there's no young people that could get
It'll
on
be
that
gangsta
show.
Jeopardy. It'll be how many
Right.
rounds of a Glock is required to smoke some fool.
That could work.
Yeah,
that could work. Keeps
We're
the show
moving-
fresh.
We're evolving toward that, I think. We're
Keeping the show
evolving.
fresh.
All right, so let's talk about how bad the Dems blow.
Sure.
Why do they blow so bad? Why are they? There's no hope, is there? I mean, seriously, there's no hope.
You sound like me at home.
I think we're all feeling that way.
Yeah,
For a minute, we thought that Pelosi was good, but she's a friggin'.
Well, I think a lot of it, honestly, is fairly structural. I mean, you guys were talking in the intro about, maybe a third party coming in. And that would be really cool, except with the way the campaigns are all financed by private donations.
Right.
Even though they're corporate donations and it's all, but the money gets laundered around through a bunch of nonprofits and stuff like that. But ultimately, we essentially sell our elections off to the highest bidder in this country, and that's constitutionally protected. There was a Supreme Court ruling in 1976, Buckley v. Valeo, that said that campaign spending is equivalent to free speech. And ever since then, there have been a couple of reforms and so on, but essentially the whole thing's just bought and sold. And that's openly discussed. You turn on CNN right now and they talk about Hillary, or they talk about
Right.
Barack Obama or whatever. And the question is, how much money can they raise? And that's what makes them a viable candidate.
Right, that's exactly right.
As long as we live, and that's accepted as normal, as long
Right.
as we accept that as normal in this country, I don't see how we're ever going to have any substantial change.
Well, what can we do about it?
You know, that's a good question. I think if Abby Hoffman was around today, he'd be throwing dollar bills at candidates. He would be doing everything he could to kind of reveal who's sponsoring candidates as they're running, who paid for them on the way in.
Bob, could I
They're
ask
all
you a
just
question?
bought and sold,
I
right? I
wonder
mean,
what-
they're all owned. There's none of them that like really represent the American people at all, right?
Well, I mean, there are many who try. I really, actually, I've met a lot of these guys. I used to do radio when I was, there was about a 5-year period where I did radio commentaries, and in that capacity passed for a journalist. I don't know how that happened, but
Well, it doesn't take much.
not a lot, no. And
I think
basically,
you just need a hat.
you have to be able to look into the camera and be breathless about something, you know.
Boy, on cable, all the women look like painted up prostitutes on the news ladies.
Yeah.
They look like porn stars.
Yeah, it is actually.
Well, at
Fox
least that
News.
part's good. 'Cause the rest of the whole news thing I'm not into. Could I just ask Bob a question?
Yeah.
Bob, what percentage, if you had to pick a number, of the American public do you think thinks of politics as roughly the front office for big money or big business? How many people do you think roughly think more or less the fix is in?
You know, I've never actually said that out loud to anybody and had anyone say, "Oh no, it's never like that." That's never happened.
Everybody knows
so,
it,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, but it's not really talked about nearly enough. And I think that,
It's because the people just don't have any lobbyists, isn't it?
well, yeah, that's some of it. And I think it's existed for so long, and people aren't sure structurally what to do about it. I mean, that's why we have such low turnout in this country, too.
Well, what do you think? Do you think there's a solution? Because we're interested in like supplying solutions or at least suggesting and talking about them. Do you think there is one?
Well, I think the first thing that we can do is things like this, where we're actually, discussing it particularly. I think we should do a much greater job of demanding that our media report real issues. I think whenever we turn on the TV and we see a report on headline news, on news programs
About a friendly dog and such?
yeah, Britney Spears got out of a limo and showed too much, or there's a, Miss USA drank, or, that stuff. That's not news. It's actually, at home we have a satellite dish and we watch the
It's
news programs from.
disinformation, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's just rubbish. And when you watch the news in like developing countries, it's amazing. There's none of that stuff. The news is all about how do we eat? What are we going to do
Right,
next? And
exactly.
it's actually issues that matter. And you turn on American
Well,
television.
because I think it's because in a lot of parts of the world, people actually are seeking solutions, whereas here we don't want any solutions, even though we know what they are. Our horror is that they might actually be enacted, I think.
I think that, well, also I think there's a lot of people who want, real changes and just don't see any way they can directly affect anything. And as a result, just sort of give up. I mean, when there's people march in the streets, and then the marches get underreported on television, or
Yeah.
they don't even get shown.
No, they don't even get
I mean,
shown.
the night before the Iraq invasion, or in the weeks before the Iraq invasion, I should say, the largest protests in human history
human
took to the
history.
streets all
Right,
over the world,
exactly.
protesting against this impending invasion.
That's correct.
And it was remarkable how little this was reported.
Not as much as Britney Spears' underwear.
That's right.
Or whatever the...
What do both of you think about this? To what degree do you think that, speaking of solutions, that we could use the same strategies that they use? Noam Chomsky says consensus is shaped by the people with the money. They're good sloganeers. To what degree could we affect change by using the same thing that the Republicans do, or that
What,
anybody
slogans,
does? In other words,
empty
marketing.
slogans?
How do you market the idea to people that, you know what, it's not patriotic to look past a lot of the BS, etc. We can affect change. We don't have to be. Don't you think that that's what's happened? The people have been sold this idea. I mean, a small minority of people are running things. We know that. A tiny and astronomically tiny fraction of the people have the power. And they use the media to shape consensus and tell everybody, you're not going to vote for them, are you? They're for killing babies and letting gays get married. Oh, my God.
Right, you're already seeing the swift boating of Barack Obama, Representative Murtha, when he came out and he said what we all knew about the war, and everyone
Right.
immediately seized on him to question his patriotism. Unfortunately, one of the obstacles that we also have is the way that the media structurally exists in this country as a corporate entity. It's why we're sitting here on the internet.
Right.
it's a lot of, and I don't mean to like, some grand conspiracy theory, but it's just structurally true. Look in the business pages. These are media corporations that exist simply to make a profit. Their product in news programs is not information. The product is you watching at home. Right. That they're selling to the advertisers, and that's not going to change anytime soon. And so we can come up with all the slogans in the world, we can come up with all the marketing in the world. Ultimately, and that actually does help in elections because you've got 5-second sound bites, you get on the TV, you're good. But I think long term, what we have to do in this country is think more in terms of, and I hate to say it, direct action. The same way.
I absolutely agree.
It's not the letter; it's how it does it get delivered or not. And if they own the media, we can try our damnedest. But like you said, you don't have to be a conspiracy freak to realize that it's all a business.
Right.
So
I like that you brought up the term direct action because that's exactly what I'm for. And on the website, I'm always talking about direct action because nothing means anything if you're not going to do it. If you're just going to talk about it, if you're just going to be a theorist, you've really removed yourself from the world of action. Now you're all the world of thought. So that's like, I think, why nothing gets done. And I was like sort of toying with the whole concept of like direct meditative action. And in our next segment, we're going to have meditators. And a lot of people right now actually do practice meditative action.
So, like, if we think about it, we're going to, and I mean this very sweetly, but we're going to levitate Donald Rumsfeld? What's the...
No, that would be incorrect and ridiculous.
Okay.
Now, what we're going to do is we're going to first agree, and then we're going to take the necessary action to make the thing that we want happen.
Well, I think to some degree that's a preliminary or necessary step to the antidote to what can I do?
Right.
Oh my God, I'm in this world with these huge corporate.
I'll tell you,
what
the
can
first
you
thing
do?
you've got to do is clear all the BS out of your head. That's why meditation is an important part of it.
And the step after that, instead of feeling powerless, what can I do against this monolithic huge, I'm surrounded, I'm floundering in it. Actually, you can start at the center.
You can.
You can need a little less from
That's
the big
correct.
chemical companies.
Absolutely.
Once in a
That's
while,
a
you
great
can choose
solution.
to have a glass of water instead of some Jack Me Up Cola, where the girls with the bikinis jump around in the corporation. Every now and then, you can need a little less. You can take a little more of your resources, whatever they are, whether your time, your money, or whatever, and send them a little less in that direction. And you don't have to feel utterly powerless.
But
I'm not an optimist.
Right, but I want to connect that to how, like, the average voter can, make the dams work for them. So, do we have a call? Does anyone want to join in on this? We have a minute to. Should we stretch and then take the call? Okay. Well, I still want to talk about the Democrats. Okay.
Let's stretch or do what we
We've
got to
got a
do. Let's
call.
not make the foot fit the shoe. Let's keep Bob for
We
a
have
little
a
while.
call.
I know.
Yeah, but I mean, we can still talk for sure. We're not going to end
It's
it.
not going to be meditation now on the
No.
other side of this phone call.
This person
Probably
wants
ready.
to talk about the Dems.
Ready.
So, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. What is your name?
Meredith.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from San Francisco.
Sweet. We love it. I was just up there in Berkeley. So, what do you want to add to this conversation?
Well, I just want to say that a lot of Democrats were running around saying, oh, we took the House and blah, 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 but they don't realize that the people who came in were a lot more conservative, and it pushed the whole Democratic Party further to the right. And a lot of people, the Republicans who got out, were moderate Republicans.
That's
so it's like,
true.
just because people got this label doesn't mean they're working on the right side.
That's absolutely true.
Well, it's also worth pointing out too that it was it was this historic landslide in one way. You don't find a lot of elections where one party doesn't take a single seat from the other one. But so many of the elections, so many of the individual congressional elections were also just razor's edges. I mean, there were like a dozen that were too close to call for weeks. And the actual mandate, such as it was still just a few percentage points, even though there's this big shift in the House. And I think what unfortunately has happened, at least among a lot of the Democrats and anyone to the left of there that I've spoken to, is a certain sense of complacency already setting in. It's kind of like, well, we got the Congress, our
Right.
job is done here.
I got this email from this guy, and I wanted to add it because I thought it was cool to include email in our show. And this person says, can you believe I take my glasses off to read? But it says, here's a sample of the legislation and confirmed judicial appointments brought to us by what passes for the political left in the United States. Welfare Reform, Telecommunications Reform Act, Digital Millennium Copyright Act, Most Favored Nation trade status for China, the Persian Gulf War, the Iraqi War, the Patriot Act, continuation of the Cuban embargo, tax cuts for the rich in a time of war, and Justice Clarence Thomas. So it's like he's saying all that stuff about voting for the lesser of two evils. And he says, if the reduction of our civil liberties and a criminal war do not cross the line, then what the hell does? I mean, you know, what has to happen before we stop casting our vote in favor of the spineless and convictionless Democrat Party? Let's really talk about how spineless and evil and horrible they are, how they've just sold it all down the river. Except for Murtha, I felt like, oh my God, that was like a step in the right direction.
Well, you know what disturbed me about the Murtha thing, though, is, and it's a measure of this same stuff, that what passes for, you know, the left in this country is still, you know, by any kind of global standard, really remarkably right.
Right.
You know, Murtha, the only reason he had credibility was because he's been this extremely militaristic hawk most of his life. So we still invest credibility, not in the people who are actually, I don't know, correct about various issues, but in the people who were so stridently wrong and then changed their mind. I mean,
right.
It's like
you know,
John Wayne told us that the war's not going so well, so we can have that.
that's exactly right. Well, if John Wayne says so, then well, if that's the standard we use, then we're
But we
never
don't
going
really
to
use that standard, because today I saw in the news that all the Joint Chiefs of Staff have said no, but we're still going ahead.
Right, well,
Everyone
it's Bush.
said don't.
To tie things all together, though, where Bob started about money and elections and parties and how it's money-driven, really, I think we have to face the reality that politics is the servant of economics. It's money's bitch. Let's face it.
Yeah.
We can either sit around and feel hopeless, or we can try the small changes, personal changes, communicate with each other. At least we've got the internet now, and people are educated. The world is smaller, and for every brainwashed layer that we have, we've also got an opportunity for insight every day. And we have to look at all this stuff and just say, hey, you know what? Let's take
Well,
a good hard look and
I
follow the
just
money
wanna-
and see why things are the way they are.
Well, I just want to bitch, but you seem like you've got a solution, so share it.
I think the solution is, and it ties in with your meditation show, we have to start at the center. We have to start with ourselves and go ahead and say how hopeless things are and how powerful the big monolith is. Okay, I'm not an optimist, but at the same time, you have to affect tiny changes. Take charge of the real estate between your ears, at least. Try to listen to unbiased, try to be objective, move things. Take care of yourself and need less from the man. Need less from this big corporate planet-destroying monolith that is indeed trying to gather all the dispersed energy to Cheney and friends and Halliburton and whoever, the Chinese and their dollars. Energy gathered must be dispersed. If we're
Well,
going
I
to be
think
free,
that's true.
we've got to take that energy back in the small ways
the
we
addiction,
can.
like George Bush also said. which-
Emerson said the stronger the state, the weaker the individual. So step back from it all. If you think the state is corrupt, take a step back. You empower yourself just by doing that. Tell your friends, hang on to the real estate between your ears, be informed, and like Bob, try to tell the truth as clear as you can see it, as loudly as you can.
Well, do you have a solution then?
Well, I mean, to follow up on what you said, I don't have a specific, I wish I could just say throw this lever and it's done. And unfortunately, that's the way that we approach politics. People think that the democracy begins in the voting booth. They walk in, I'm going to throw a lever, and it's done. And in fact, democracy is what happens in all the time between going to the voting booth.
That's correct.
And all of the days that we spend like this one, and this is where we influence who winds up on the ballot in the voting booth. And you know, there's an old saying about how when the people lead, the leaders will ultimately follow. You know, the Vietnam War, you know, ended, and there's internal documents that have been declassified showing the way that, you know, various people in the White House and the Pentagon were seeing things. It was public protest that had huge radical shifts. One of the reasons there was never a full-scale invasion of Nicaragua during the 1980s was specifically because the Reagan administration feared massive public outrage, protest on that issue. It's ultimately up to us. And so the only reason that ultimately, even with all the problems that we have that we need to confront about the money involved in the media, the money involved in politics, and so on, ultimately it is our government, it is our country, and we really can change it. You look at the way that policy on like anything from the death penalty is shifting because of public opinion, and so on.
We have another call. Let's see what they can add. Hi.
Hi, Roseanne. How you doing?
Good. What have you got to add?
Forgive me. I missed the first 5 minutes of the show, so this may have already been brought up.
Okay.
But
My name's Ron.
As far as I'm concerned, what we really have to do, I realize there's no magic bullet, but the closest thing there is to a magic bullet to take a giant step forward into where we should be in the future is we have to say that nobody should vote for any politician unless they agree to a real, authentic campaign finance reform.
That's cool.
No,
I
no one
totally
should vote
agree.
for a Republican. No one should vote for a Democrat.
I totally
Obviously,
agree.
the Greens are going to be on, and people like that are going to be on the right side of this. But I think that's the only way we can ever have a real democracy in this country is to have real campaign finance reform so that anybody of any class has a chance to get to higher office instead of, I mean, George Bush, he's the kid of oil companies. He's not even a person. He is an oil company. It's insane.
Well, I think a lot of people are saying that same thing. A lot of people agree with you. Thank you very much for calling.
Thank you.
That was a good solution.
Yeah.
A lot of people are saying that it can't go any further without some kind of real reform in campaign finance.
Doesn't it seem awfully tough that by the time somebody would come to the top of one of the two mountains in which all the power in this country resides politically, the Democrats or Republicans, they've had to, by necessity, pass through so many filters and make so many compromises.
That they're all Republican.
That are we going to have radical, mind-blowing change from anybody in the near future? Again, don't we have to start with ourselves, communicate it, and roll that along? Because that's what we're going to see.
I
more
think
of
we
the
need
same.
to get a lot louder. That's one thing. I think we need to organize. I think we need to show up. I think we need to get a lot more verbal, a lot louder.
I think that's exactly true. I mean, you know, people think that we can't influence things. You know, it was during the Nixon years that the Vietnam War started winding down. Under Nixon, it wasn't under some left-wing
right.
leader. We're the ones in charge, and we just have to be the ones who we have to go out and do it and believe that we can make that change, which goes back to your meditation.
Yeah. Yeah, changing your mind and then like changing your will. It's some kind of new, I mean, I'm sort of new age in thinking, but I don't think it's that weird. I don't think it's that weird to talk about that.
Hey.
We're ready for a break, Jake says. So we're glad
Great.
you were
Let's
here. It
hold
was
up
fun
that-
to talk
Oh yeah,
to
let's
you.
flog the book
Hold
again.
up that book again.
Yeah.
There it is in 3D.
You're a
with the
smart guy. No
Dr.
wonder you won on Jeopardy.
Well, I appreciate that. It's Prisoner of Trebekistan, A Decade in Jeopardy, now available.
How do you like that I didn't know it was Alec Trebek?
Oh. He was actually incredibly sweet. I got the chance to ask him if it would be okay to use the name in the title, and I hadn't written a word yet, and he looked me in the eye, and he is it funny? Okay, sure.
That's cool, yeah.
Then you may.
Nice guy. He'll
Yeah.
probably sue you soon. But further back,
He's got a
whatever.
bunch of land in Malibu.
Okay, well, what are we doing? Taking a break?
Great.
All right, so we're wrapping it up. Jake
Thanks for
says
having
we're
me.
wrapping it up. Hey, thanks for coming.
My
We want
pleasure,
to have you
anytime.
again. It was fun
Anytime.
to talk to you. And congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
Pops, it was fun talking with you, too.
Thank you. Bob, it was really good.
Real pleasure.
Thanks.
Bye.